revealed, there are now growing fears that Vladimir Putin could one day load Oreshnik missiles with nuclear warheads for a future attack on Ukraine. A sinister revelation from a senior Russian minister comes just as parts of St. Petersburg burn before a major forum. Ukrainian drones have wreaked havoc in Russia's second-largest city, triggering a sharp political and military response from Moscow. Russia will use nukes if certain red lines are crossed. That is the stark message from a Putin aide. The West is on edge as President Zelensky's drone strikes anger Putin, with many now asking whether this conflict is about to enter its deadliest and most dangerous stage yet. In a major escalation, Russia's deputy foreign minister has issued what amounts to a direct nuclear threat, openly warning about the circumstances in which Moscow could resort to atomic weapons. Sergey Ryabkov specifically warned Ukraine and its Western allies against any aggressions toward Russia, hinting that such actions could provoke a catastrophic response. He made these remarks on June 3 on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, using an economic showcase to deliver a strategic warning. Sergey Ryabkov said, and I quote, "As regards us, those hypothetical extreme situations that may trigger the use of these weapons were outlined in detail in Russia's military doctrine and the fundamentals of Russia's state policy on nuclear deterrence. To put it somewhat straightforwardly, these documents send a signal that encroachments on Russia or its territorial integrity by aggressors, including those who may possess such weapons, could prompt us to use these weapons in the worst-case scenario." End quote. His warning came as Ukrainian drones struck both energy and military sites in St. Petersburg on June 3, linking the nuclear rhetoric directly to fresh attacks on Russian soil. The drone strikes landed just hours before Russia's flagship economic forum began, overshadowing the event and exposing vulnerabilities inside a showcase city. Several long-range drones crashed into oil facilities, with loud blasts heard across neighborhoods and plumes of smoke seen rising over the city. The governor of St. Petersburg said the Kirovsky and Krasnoselsky districts were among the areas targeted, confirming that key industrial zones were hit. Ukraine also reportedly struck near the Kronstadt naval base and a shipyard in the wider Leningrad region, extending the attack to critical military infrastructure. Video clips circulating online showed what appeared to be a Ukrainian drone hitting a Russian-guided missile ship, which then caught fire as flames spread across its deck. These strikes took place just about 10 miles from the Economic Forum venue where Putin is scheduled to speak on June 5, bringing the war perilously close to his stage. This was only the latest attack in a long string of tit-for-tat strikes between Ukraine and Russia, each round pushing both sides closer to a point of no return. The war has claimed more lives after another deadly incident struck Russian-controlled Crimea. Russian authorities said the strike left multiple casualties and triggered an emergency response in Simferopol. The announcement came directly from Crimea's Russian-installed leadership as details of the attack began to emerge. First responders rushed to the scene as officials worked to assess the damage and assist those affected. Sergei Aksyonov said, and I quote, "As a result of an enemy strike on non-residential buildings in Simferopol, 3 people were killed and 7 were wounded, according to preliminary reports. First responders are working on the site." Unquote. Moscow blamed Ukrainian forces for the strike and said non-military locations were among those affected. Ukraine has not responded to the accusations, while independent confirmation of the incident remains unavailable. A Ukrainian drone struck a passenger bus in the city of Yenikievo on June 3, according to initial reports from Russian-installed authorities in the area. The head of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic said 7 civilians were killed in the strike, underscoring the human toll of attacks along contested front lines. Denis Pushilin added that 11 other passengers on board suffered injuries of varying severity, with some reportedly in critical condition after the explosion and ensuing fire. The bus was traveling on a long-distance route from Moscow to Simferopol in Crimea when it was hit, suggesting the attack occurred on a major transit corridor used by civilians. Videos and images from the scene showed the vehicle almost completely destroyed by the blaze, with only the charred frame and scattered debris left recognizable as a bus. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova condemned the strike, describing it as a deliberate hunt for people and accusing Kiev of terror tactics against civilians. Russian media outlets alleged that Ukraine had carried out similar attacks on highways before, claiming a pattern of drone or missile strikes on civilian road traffic in Russian-controlled areas. Kiev, however, has repeatedly denied deliberately targeting civilians during the conflict, insisting that its drone and missile operations are aimed at military or logistical objectives. The incident came one day after large-scale Russian strikes on what Moscow described as military targets inside Ukraine on June 2, in a wider escalation of cross-border attacks. Those Russian strikes left at least 21 people dead and more than 100 injured in Ukraine, according to local authorities there, highlighting how both sides' operations are exacting a heavy civilian price. Kiev, Dnipro, and Kharkiv were among the cities targeted in a major overnight missile and drone barrage. Officials said the attacks damaged residential areas, commercial properties, and key infrastructure facilities. The city of Dnipro suffered some of the heaviest losses during the latest Russian assault. Missile and drone attacks in Dnipro left multiple people dead and several others wounded. Images emerging from the city showed shattered homes and buildings partially reduced to rubble. Rescue teams remained on the ground, searching damaged structures for possible survivors. The strikes came amid fresh Russian vows to retaliate for the recent attack in Staroselsk. Kiev faced repeated waves of drone attacks as Russian forces carried out a large-scale overnight assault. Residents spent hours under alert as explosions and air raid sirens rang out across the capital. One residential building sustained major damage after being hit in what officials described as a double-tap strike. The attack triggered multiple fires at business premises, construction areas, and fuel stations across the city. Emergency crews were deployed across Kiev after the strikes left at least 20 people injured. The latest attacks came just days after President Zelensky warned that Russia was preparing a new large-scale strike against Ukraine. Zelensky said Ukrainian intelligence had detected signs that Moscow was planning another major wave of missile and drone attacks. The Ukrainian president also expressed concern over shortages of air defense systems needed to intercept ballistic missile threats. As the assault unfolded, Poland scrambled its air force along with allied aircraft to safeguard NATO airspace near the conflict zone. The new barrage came only days after Russia launched one of its biggest attacks, firing 90 missiles and 600 drones across Ukraine.